Welcome everyone here today. We'll call the meeting to order. It's 2 o'clock. Welcome to the Delaware County Sustainability Commission meeting. And we're happy to have you here today. Just a couple reminders. This meeting is being recorded as well as live streamed. And the recording and the minutes will be posted to the Sustainability Commission website. Now I'd like to hand it over to Sharon J. to discuss the new format.
Greetings, everyone. So we are trying out a new format in Zoom. And so today we wanted to test out a couple of features. For one, letting public registrants actually register to attend the meeting, but we're going to just have them muted and using the Q&A box as a way to interact with us. For this time, because we're testing out some of the features, we may, based on how familiar we get with some of the features, we may open up some of those in the future. So all of the members are actually attending as panelists, and you all have the normal kind of Zoom features that you normally do. On the bottom end, you'll see a Q&A and you'll see a chat. The chat, you have the option of just doing the hosts and the panelists, which is the member group itself, or you can open it up to everyone, which that would include the registrants who are attending as public attendees. We've also opened up the Q&A that if anybody on the commission actually wants to answer a Q&A that's in that section, you can do that too. So Francine and I are going to kind of bounce in between the Q&A and the chat based on what's going on during our agenda to be able to address that. So for the public registrants that are attending, this is kind of the first time that we've had this. So you are going to stay muted, but you please open up the Q&A box and you can interact with us through that box for this. And you can also send emails to our Sustain Delco email that's up on the screen to also give us public input. And we'll see whether or not we actually read those out loud during the meeting. Depends on what's going on. So we'll move on to the next slide.
Okay, it's good for us to just go over the charge of the Sustainability Commission before we get started. So it's to create recommendations regarding best environmental and energy practices in the areas of buildings, facilities and operations, fuels, vehicles and transportation, food, responsible purchasing, housing, energy sources, air quality, stormwater management, natural and cultural resource protection, wildlife preservation, and climate change. It's to identify and assess environmental and energy policies the county has adopted and provide recommendations to promote and educate about the county's environmental and energy initiatives. To identify and provide recommendations regarding voluntary actions, projects, and programs for municipalities, businesses, nonprofits, and other partners to implement county environmental and energy policies. To create, review, and provide ongoing input into a Delaware County Sustainability Action Plan. And finally, to recommend triple bottom line related actions, projects, and programs to council for implementation. So I'd like to review the agenda with you today. I guess prior to that, we have a council person who'd like to say a few words if Elaine is there.
Hi, everyone. Am I on? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, good. I just wanted to take a minute because earlier this week, I attended a seminar, an event, and we had our federal delegation on it, Senator Casey, 4 or 5 Congress people, all speaking to these issues. And I just cannot overstate the level of commitment and passion from our high up government right now for investment in green infrastructure as opposed to gray infrastructure, in sustainable measures, in all of the things that this group is talking about. And I want to just make sure you all understand how important the work that you're doing is and how grateful we are that you're doing it. Because when and if, this infrastructure money doesn't ever come through, we will be in such a better position and poised to take advantage and be at the ready to make these changes because of the work you're doing. And but for the work you're doing, you know, given all the transition and everything that's happening in our county government, you know, I'm not sure where we would be without this commission. So I really just wanted to take a moment for you to hear how grateful we are for the work that and the energy and the passion that you're putting into this, how important it is, and how timely it is. I mean, this is really that moment where we are going to be making these changes, and it's important that we are poised to take advantage of it. And you're helping us do that. So that's it. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Councilperson Schaefer. That absolutely just means a lot. Thank you so much. So now I'll just go over what the agenda is going to be today. Welcome and roll call. I'll do roll call shortly. Then we'll have the approval of the August meeting minutes. Then we'll have the Chief Sustainability Officer update, and Francine Locke will do that. Then we'll discuss recommendations for resolution amendments. Then comments on the clean air for DEP hearing. Then the Delaware County Solid Waste Management hearing. Then we'll discuss the sustainability plan, high-level goals, and Sharon J. will be covering that. The sustainability outreach plan, Sharon J. will also be covering that. Then we'll open it up to any new business and announcements, and then we will adjourn.
We want to do the roll call?
Oh, I thought that was the next slide, sorry.
No, I don't have a slide for it.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, I do want to do that. Hold on just a moment. Okay, so when I call your name, say here, Sean Stansel.
Here.
Becca Yurkovich.
Here.
Stephanie Howe Hassanawi.
Here.
Steve Clark.
Here.
And I'm Carol Martzoff, so I'm here. Jacqueline Rhodes.
Here.
Scott Sidlow.
Here.
Jenny Sachs.
Here.
David Director.
I'm here.
Ed Orner. Donna Burnett. Mark Manfrey.
Here.
Thomas Schaefer. Michael McNichol. Ed McGargy.
Here.
Laura Goodrich Cairns.
Here.
Okay. It looks like overall we have quorum, but we don't have as many county people as we typically have.
Carol, Tom Schaefer's on. I don't think he.
Oh, he is?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't hear
I just
him.
joined. I didn't hear my name.
Oh.
Gotcha. Yay.
Okay. Oh, that's good. That's
Yeah,
good. Okay.
We have official quorum. That's just
Oh, good.
awesome.
All right. Okay, let me just mark that here.
Okay, so we do have a quorum today. That's fantastic.
Excellent. That's good news.
Woo.
That's good news.
Okay, so then the next slide.
Oh, and then so now we want to approve the August meeting minutes, and those were emailed out to everyone. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the August meeting minutes?
Carol, before we get there, this is Becca. I was in that meeting, but it's not reflected in the attendance.
Oh, so that we do need to change that. Okay.
Okay, we can change that.
Thank you.
Also, I have a question. Didn't we, on the approval of the July minutes, didn't we come back after Tom arrived and
did.
approve those? So,
We did.
so we should indicate that we did in fact approve them.
Okay,
Okay. Right.
I can make that change.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you for pointing that out.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes as revised.
Okay. Thank you, Ed. Would someone like to second that motion?
Second.
Okay. Thanks, David. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, so moved. The August meeting minutes with those little edits is approved.
Did you hear me?
Oh, hi, Jacqueline. Yeah. Oh, yes. What?
I was just saying I wasn't there, so I was going to abstain.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you, Jacqueline. Okay, thank you. Okay, so it seems like the motion still passed. So, okay. Thank you for that.
Yeah, we've had a couple of questions in the chat and the Q&A talking about the September 27th ARPA hearing that is, I think, was just barely announced. I want to move that to new business at the end of the meeting, and I'll bring it up again because I don't have an answer for the group. We need to talk about it. So there's just, if you see the couple of questions in the Q&A and in the chat, we'll bring those up again at the end. Okay. Okay, Francine, we'll turn it over to you.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. It's nice to see you all. Just want to start with a communications update. So we are using our social media accounts heavily, trying to get the word out about these meetings and also sharing a lot of other information from the county about sustainability efforts. So here's our Twitter, our Facebook, and our Instagram. Please follow us and please spread the word. We've adjusted our email, our general email account to Sustain Delco. Instead of Go Green Delco. However, the Go Green Delco email is still going to be forwarded to the Sustain Delco. And that's the email address that you can use for comments during this meeting as well. And again, we're also taking suggestions for our stakeholder engagement list, our contact list, our address book. We want to engage with environmental action committees and nonprofits and community groups so that we can distribute information, surveys, newsletters. So if you have any suggestions for contacts for us, please send them to the email here, which is Sharon J's email. And we have updated our website. So our new website is a little bit more informative, I think. It includes opportunities for engagement. You can actually share your thoughts through email. We're also registering for this public meeting as was announced at the beginning. And that's a new feature for us. And we have our calendar of meeting dates with the prior minutes, the presentations from the meetings, as well as links to register for the next meeting. So if you want to actually be a participant in the meeting, you must register, and it's on our website. We also have a list of current projects and plans that we're working on, and we hope to develop this even further in the future. So some of the program updates that I normally share with you guys every month, the CPACE, or the Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy Program, we haven't gotten any bites yet officially from businesses. We've had a lot of interest, but we haven't really gotten any signups or applications for the loans. So we highly recommend that you get the word out to local businesses to try and get them to be interested in this program. You can also ask them to Google Delaware County CPACE. That will take you directly to the website that is managed by SEF, where you can get lots of information and the application process. We're working on our fiscal year capital improvement program. We just had our second meeting with the Capital Projects Committee, where we talked about the prioritization rubric that we're using and all of the projects that we're going to be requesting to go before council for approval during budget time. There are a lot of different projects that came from our statement of need process, in which we requested all the departments throughout the county and the courts to share what their capital needs are. And next year, we're hoping that the capital improvement program will be more data-driven from the facility condition and needs assessment process. That's the next item here. Our facility condition and needs assessment draft reports will be in the first week of October of this month. Sharon is actually working daily on looking through all of the reports that have been sent to us. They're preliminary. They're extremely detailed and very data-driven. And so it's not an easy read, but we're trying to look at them before they're actually published so that we have a first look. And if we see anything that looks like it needs to be reviewed, it will be so before it's public. We'd like KCBA, who is the consultant that has developed the FCNA, to present to the Sustainability Commission. This is going to be a very long presentation. We don't think it's going to be 20 minutes. We'd actually like to dedicate a very large portion of one of our commission meetings to the FCNA update so that you guys can take a look at what has happened, what the reports look like before we send them to council, because we'd like to have KCBA to present this information to council as well. So an update on our Southeastern Pennsylvania Regional Power Purchase Agreement. An RFP was issued by the DVRPC for an energy consultant, as I've discussed at prior meetings, and those proposals are due October 8th. Solid waste management plan, we have, as you know, as a county, we must revise our solid waste management plan on a 10-year basis. The RFP has been posted and the due date is in November. I'm sorry, I didn't put that on my notes here. So not the due date, but we should have a consultant by November. I don't have the actual date. I'll mention that later. I'll grab it and share when the proposals are due. Sharon, you don't happen to recall what the date was? Yeah, sorry.
No, sorry.
I know questions and answers were due. I think yesterday was the last day for those, or one day this week. There were quite a lot of questions from proposers. We're having a good time with the DEP Local Climate Action Program. Dr. J has been mentoring 2 students from Bryn Mawr College, and they are going to focus on working with Sharon to engage the municipalities, the environmental action councils, the NGOs, so that we can get one-on-one conversations with each one of these different folks who are very important to the development of our sustainability plan and understanding greenhouse gas emissions throughout the county. So I think that's an exciting road. Sharon, did you want to mention anything about your interaction with the students?
No, I just think they're going to be rock stars and they're really excited about helping me with outreach and helping the commission with the outreach. And we'll talk about this a little bit more later on in the agenda. So
thank you, Sharon. And today is the last day to submit an application for the Greenways grants for municipalities and nonprofits. So we encourage you, if you haven't already done so, please get your applications in. Thank you. Any questions? Cool. Thank you.
okay. So now we're going to talk over the recommendations for the council resolution amendment that actually creates the Sustainability Commission. We have been circulating and had lots of online conversations, so this is kind of the final version. We didn't receive any more changes to it, but let me go over what the schedule is. There's a lot of things that have to happen before other things. And so this is the schedule of what we have to do to propose the amendments. So on today's meeting, we need to vote on the recommendations and make sure that the language is exactly how we wanted it to be. It hasn't changed from the last time I sent it to you all, but I'll have it on the next couple of slides for us to review. We need to talk about possible recruitment for the new members, and we'll talk about that a little bit more detail in a moment. And then we have to vote to extend our expiring terms that expired at the end of this month to at least until the end of November. And then we'll be able to bring in new members or re-vote in existing members that wanted to re-up, and we'll discuss that. So if we vote on the recommendations today, then we will send it to council next week and have it added to the agenda for the October 6th council meeting for them to be able to vote on it. After they approve the changes, then we can officially do the member recruitment, and we can do some outreach in October, which I'm going to propose that we have letter of interest due by October 29th, but I'd like to talk about that with everyone. The members of the commission will vet the interest letters and then make recommendations to the executive director. He actually makes the final decisions about who's going to be the additional members. He'll do that. We'll make recommendations to him in early November. He will approve the member recommendations by November 12th. And then our November 19th meeting, we would vote in either the new or returning members. So that's how that kind of schedule works. One of the other things we have to do in the middle of that is after the council approves the changes on the resolution, then we have to amend our bylaws in October so that we can vote new members in November. And so I have to get you adjusted bylaws by October 7th, which is, it has to be in your hands 14 days before we vote on them on October 21st. So I will be tracking the schedule for everyone and making sure that we do things in the right order and make sure that things are taken care of. But does anybody have any questions on this slide before we start talking about the amendments? Yeah, most of this is not new information. I've sent it before, so. Okay. So I've got two slides here with the actual, just the changes that we're proposing to the amendments. Our lawyer, Jonathan Lichtenstein, added a couple of things in there that had to do with our online meeting resolution that we did a couple of months ago to be able to do some online meetings. So he wrapped those into the changes. And so, and he also made some adjustments to restate the resolution instead of having to have multiple documents. It's a legal reason that totally makes sense if we think about it, but that's where some of this language comes. So on the second bullet, he talks about county council desires to make certain changes to the 2020 resolution and amend and restate. There's a legal reason why it says that, and we'll just trust Jonathan that that's the right thing to put in there. He also did the, on number 8, provided that it may meet by remote means and may post agendas electronically only. That's also takes care of some of the changes we did a couple of months ago when we asked to be able to meet online. And then the very last bullet on number 9, it's just talking about establishing the resolution. Does anyone have questions about the language on this slide?
Aaron, we do have a question and sort of a comment regarding the appointment of Sustainability Commission members. Mike Ewald says, wouldn't it be more democratic if the elected county council did the appointments and if the Sustainability Commission weren't so self-perpetuating? So I want to put that out there for the commission to comment on.
I'm sorry, was that in the chat you said, Francine?
It's in the Q&A. It's in the Q&A. I know the original resolution said that the executive director makes the appointments. So that was in the original resolution from a year and a half ago. And that would be up, yeah, that would be up to the council as to whether or not they wanted to change that, I guess. Does anybody else?
Yeah, I would say that obviously that's something that shouldn't come before the commission that's talking about themselves. So definitely something that should be brought up to council.
Okay, and then the next slide talks about the adjustments that we want to propose to the council about the individual folks on here. Right now, the balance is government members is 8 people and public members is 9. And Howard Lazarus, our executive director, actually proposed it actually might be balanced a little bit more in favor of the public. So when we we're talking about these changes, we were talking about adding Francine as Chief Sustainability Officer so she can be an actual co-chair of the group, removing Central Purchasing Department. That doesn't mean we won't work with them. We just may not have them actually at the meetings and as a member. And also removing Director of the Office of Housing and Community Development. And then so we would have 7 government members. And then we wanted to adjust the last line on the public members, changing it from 2 representatives in the environmental justice field, but also adding language saying representing a historically marginalized community so that we had a little bit more flexibility on that particular line. So this would result in 7 government members and 10 public members. So we would still have 17 members. The balance would just be slightly adjusted. Does anyone have any comments or questions?
Hi, Sharon, this is Becca. I have some, I guess, just minor edits that I would like to recommend. They're not contextual, it's just for clarity. First, under number, I guess, 2, letter C, I would recommend that the 2 municipal managers also add or be amended to read municipal managers and officials, strictly because I am not a municipal manager, but I fall into that role as a municipal representative. And I also believe that Scott is also a municipal representative, but he is also not a township manager, if I remember correctly. So that just opens it up where it's still municipal representatives, but not strictly limited to municipal managers.
Does this change the language? You said 2 municipal managers or officials?
I think that's sufficient, yes.
Okay.
In the same line, I would also recommend changing each representing a township or borough to municipality instead, strictly because that language is not inclusive of Chester City, which is a 3rd-class city, rather than a borough or township.
Gotcha. That was a good catch.
And then the last one is under letter D. I would recommend changing the word county to municipal, as it's my understanding that our representative is from a municipal environmental advisory committee, not a county.
That's another good catch.
And while we're on this roll, I have one more. It's actually, I noticed it in the Word version, under number 1 on the Word version. There needs to be a semicolon between the word transportation and the word food, because it reads vehicles, fuels, or transportation food currently.
Oh, it does, doesn't it? Okay, I know what you're talking about. That's in the Sustainability Commission charge.
Correct.
That's the charge of the. Okay, I'll double check grammar. Is that? I already
Right.
We didn't have an E, and therefore I already caught one little item, but I'll double check that. Okay.
Alrighty, thank you.
We do have another question. So James McLaughlin says, will there be any changes to the requirements for skills for each commission member? Zero waste expertise, for example. And will there be an increase in the number of members beyond adding under F? Any commission member?
So I had a few things related to that too. So I'm the environmental justice member, but I feel like it would be probably easier to change it to be one representative representing a historically marginalized community dealing with an environmental justice issue, and then someone with expertise, because I'm very different than someone who has experienced an environmental justice, health concern or something like that.
I think with the language that we have proposed, it gives us the flexibility.
It gives you flexibility,
either.
but it also means that you might just get 2 people who are, academically inclined toward environmental justice concerns and not actually living having the true lived experience of that.
Right.
And then similarly for the 2 municipal managers, I would say they need to be from disparate areas of the county. So like whether there's a metric you could use for that, but it would be, not from the same corner of it, representing different socioeconomic backgrounds, things like that. I think that would be important.
Right.
I'm
wondering whether or not we actually change that in the resolution language itself, or we leave this a little bit more vague. And then, what if we don't get anybody applying for a particular position if we've narrowed it down so much in the resolution? We don't want to have to go back to council to change the resolution multiple times because we're having a hard time recruiting. If we leave this particular language a little bit more vague but still instructional as to who should be on the commission, then because we don't want to have to keep going back to council to adjust the resolution. So we could maybe ask the executive director to use that type of metric in evaluating and making his final decisions about who's on the membership. But what if we don't have enough applicants? That's my thoughts.
So
Yeah,
could you, oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Stephanie.
I was just gonna say, could you add then that language of saying like special attention will be made to prioritize, you know, socioeconomic, racial diversity or something, just like at least a guiding like principle kind of, because otherwise it's, I mean, if you don't put it in now, then you're just kind of going to what Mike was saying in the chat, like you're just kind of perpetuating then the same people being part of it.
Right.
So I'm kind of torn about that.
I know, and I don't know how to put that language in there without asking for our lawyers and for us to keep on our schedule for this fall. I'm a little, David, go ahead.
Can I suggest maybe, I think, Stephanie, I like what you're getting at, but I certainly agree, Sharon, that you don't want to make the written requirements overly narrow. But I think what we might do is add a line that says the executive director shall attempt to or consider geographical and economic diversity in selecting applicants.
You know what, I
Or
just
something of that
I just had a thought. So the process of the executive director choosing from the list or us processing the interested parties and then making recommendations to the executive director are not part of the resolution, they're part of our bylaws. And so what we could do is in the bylaws section in the next couple of weeks, which we'll discuss a little bit through email and then discuss in our October meeting, is to actually flesh out a process that actually talks about all of this on how we are going to vet the end of, like, this is the basic level that the council has in their resolution, and then the process by which we vet interest and then put forth recommendations to the executive director could be part of our bylaws.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
One other thing too is, could we get the new health department director on this committee as well?
I would say, no, we can invite the new health department director anytime we want, just like we can the purchasing person, the housing and community, and some of the other people that we discussed, like public works and that kind of thing. It's not just because they're not a member doesn't mean they can't be invited to every single meeting and participate. I think though, for the next year or two, it would be a really huge stretch for us to try and have them on our sustainability commission, just because they're standing up a brand new health department. And we did talk about that, and I just don't think it's possible right now.
Okay.
We have another question here. James McLaughlin, and I think that the commission talked about this last time actually. Rather than adding municipal officials, should you just permit representatives to be designated by those managers? This would retain the oversight. I think it means that, instead of having to have the director of facilities, you could have a designee. I believe that's what's being said here.
Well, Becca, did the suggestion that you said saying municipal manager or official take care of that?
Sure. So to provide some background, I guess, on that recommendation. So I'm not a township manager, but I am the assistant manager of a township. And if I remember correctly, Scott Sidlow as well, he's not a municipal manager. And I apologize if I'm misrepresenting you, Scott, please interject. But he is a commissioner. So in both situations, we still serve in capacities where we represent the township. It's just merely we don't hold those titles. So I think that in expanding this language to say municipal managers or officials, it's kind of meeting that requirement or broadening it enough where we're still officials in a representative capacity. We just don't have that very specific title.
You're correct. I'm a borough council member. I'm not a municipal official.
Okay.
Good catch, Becca.
Sharon?
Yep.
Mr. McLaughlin also says, might the commission identify certain ex officio members? And that might be for the health department director. And I think we
Yeah, and
discussed-
I think we can, when we have our bylaw discussion, we can actually do ex officio through our bylaws instead of making it part of the council resolution. And if that makes sense for everybody, we can talk about that.
One more thing, just talking about the areas of expertise again, Mr. McLaughlin. He mentioned that there's a good list in the RFP, and that's for the solid waste management plan in terms of skill topic areas. So might it be appropriate to indicate that members should come from and represent a range of topics at the discretion of the commission, so there is not a one-to-one relationship requirement? Come from and represent a range of topics at the discretion of the commission. So there isn't a one-to-one relationship requirement. I think that's a good point to think about for sure.
I do think that the way like we have two representatives of the general public, and so you could use those two positions to, you know, suggest somebody that maybe doesn't have certain experience or does, or has a wide range. I think the environmental, the EAC position covered in D might also, and then the rest of them are very specific, but we have F, D, and B, I think that are maybe general enough that we might be able to satisfy that with several of those positions. And that through the process that we'll talk about actually on the next slide after we do this, we can work out some of our process issues through the bylaws and how we want to process applications and letter of interest and that kind of thing. That is not something we would put in the resolution to the council. Any other thoughts on this language? It's on the screen. Okay. Let me go back to screen sharing the normal way. Carol, do you want to, we can, basically the next step is to vote on this language and the
Yeah, so we've all had a chance to look at those revisions to the resolution, and yeah, I guess it's helpful if you share your screen so we can all see them again. So would someone like to make a motion to approve? It looks a little funny on the screen, by the way, Sharon.
It does, I know.
Okay.
I'm trying to fix it.
Okay, would someone like to make a motion to approve the edits to the resolution that we just saw? And like, we'll just have it in one big motion, not like individually, but just all the items that you saw in red. Would someone like to make a motion to have those, to approve those edits?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, thanks, Jacqueline. Would someone second the motion?
I'll second.
And who was that?
It's Jenny.
Oh, Jenny, thank you, Jenny. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, so moved. The changes to the resolution have been passed. Sharon, did you want to talk about the second bullet before we make a motion on that one?
So one of the things that we were talking with Mr. Lazarus about some of these proposed amendments, we were talking about how 3 of the positions expired at the end of September, and we just didn't start early enough in the summer to get the process done. So he suggested, so that we don't vacate those seats before we finish this process, which I talked about on the first slide, that we vote to extend the commission members' expiring terms, the ones that expire September 30th, and extend them until November 30th. And with the plans that in the November meeting, we would be through most of this process and voting in the new members so that they would overlap properly with our 2-month delay.
Sharon, can you let the commission know when the annual meeting for the Sustainability Commission is?
So technically, by the bylaws, the annual meeting is supposed to be the October meeting. And so the idea, and that's in the bylaws. So the idea was that the commission members' roles end in September, and then we hit in October is when the new people are voted in. And so that's why we're kind of extending it by a couple months. That helps.
So is the plan to also then change the bylaws to move the annual meeting into November 30th? Otherwise, you're looking at potentially voting in somebody into a position that would then leave the commission the following month.
We could, as part of this, vote to say that our annual meeting is going to be in November.
Let me suggest that perhaps it sounds as though the objection is that we are extending some terms until the end of November, but we're voting in their replacements early in November. And if that's the issue, we simply make the extension until November 30th or until their replacements are voted in. I mean, that's just a matter of language, I think.
Isn't that Robert's rules as well, Mr. Director, that as long as there hasn't been an appointment made, the sitting individual stays until an appointment has been made?
Okay, I think the only problem with it is that our bylaws state that the terms end in September. So I think that's maybe why we need to have a vote. That's my understanding. It may be with the way we wrote the bylaws the first round, and we may need to address this as part of that, process.
I don't see any downside to having a vote. I mean, might as well have a vote.
How do you revise the bylaws by just saying November 30th, though? So you're voting to violate your...
No, we're voting to extend the terms, but we're not voting to change the bylaws.
Sharon, would it be sufficient to make a motion to, for example, extend the commission's expiring terms until November 30th or until like an appointment is made to fulfill like their spot, so it's not dead set on that November 30th in case there is an overlap?
Right.
Like, would that
I think that would be sufficient.
Or extend until the next annual meeting?
But that would be the next October, the way we have it written in the bylaws.
Yeah, I think
I know.
I think the simple way is, until their successors have been duly installed, as we say in some places.
I think that would, yeah, a mix between David and Becca's would take care of the issue, just to make sure we're covering ourselves. I think that's really all it is. And it may be that Laura's talking about Robert's Rule of Order means that we're good to go and we don't have to have the vote. But if we do have to have the vote because of the way the bylaws are currently written, then we've done it and we're okay. I think that's kind of where we are.
It may be better. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, for the sake of the motion, can you share who the 3 expiring terms are? I know I am one of them, but should we specifically name those spots for the motion?
We can. It's Sean Stansel, yep, Becca Yurkovich, and Stephanie Howe Hassanali. Sorry, Stephanie. Or we could say the commission members' terms that are expiring September 2021. We could do it that way, but
Sharon, we don't appoint members, the executive director does.
Correct. And he made the suggestion that we have a vote to extend the terms for 2 months, just to kind of cover ourselves.
A one-time extension.
Correct.
I would put forth the motion that we make a one-time extension to the current 3 members on the Sustainability Commission whose terms were set to expire in October to November 30th or September.
And then don't we have to say, or until the successors have been installed?
Or until these successors have been installed.
Right, that sounds like a complete motion to me. Okay, would someone like to second that motion?
Second it.
Okay, thanks, David. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Opposed.
Who was that?
Ed McGargy.
Oh, opposed. Okay, seems like according to the
Carol.
votes. Oh, yes.
Sorry, this is Becca. Shouldn't technically, and I'm sorry, shouldn't technically Sean, Stephanie, and I abstain from the vote because it's for our terms?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'll abstain.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
I'll abstain.
Okay. All right, did Stephanie say she would abstain? She has, okay. All right. With that, it still looks like the yeses have it.
Okay.
So moved. That motion was approved.
Okay, then I just wanted to kind of open the floor to talk about recruitment ideas and a letter of interest process. Mr. Lazarus doesn't necessarily have any opinions on the recruitment process either way. And we kind of thinking we wanted to make it as simple as possible and not put too many like requirements within a particular thing. If somebody wants to express their interest, it would be maybe as simple as which position they might recruit for on the resolution that we just talked about, the amendments, and why they're interested. That's kind of my suggestion, but I would love to open the floor to talk about recruitment ideas and how we should kind of outline the process.
Well, you're putting together that master list, right? Of all the NGOs and
yeah,
advocacy organizations and stuff. So I think, that would be obviously a natural step. But then for those of us who are like, if we want to seek another term, are we applying, like, are we putting our names in again as well?
I think so. But it's like the simple, like writing up the letter of interest that I would love to continue in the position.
So then how would you, so like last time we did a more thorough like application, like how would you assess people's backgrounds?
I don't know. That's what I'd love to hear because I wasn't part of that initial process and neither was Francine. We don't know how that was handled the first time around. So we didn't put anything in our bylaws for it. So I have no idea what was done before. And what would you all like to suggest we do? And then we can actually put a process in the bylaws that talks about some of the things, Stephanie, that you talked about before, on how they're evaluated and such. And I will say it's like we do, I think, the process of maybe the commission members evaluating things, and we send recommendations to Mr. Lazarus. But then if he wants to see all the applications, then he could. So, I think that's part of it.
Sharon, I'd like to point out that none of us really know. Howard is the one who knows because he is the one who selected all of us. Councilwoman Schaefer, perhaps you were involved in that process. You might be able to shed some light on it. But other than that, the rest of us are all the selectees, not the selectors.
We did not. I don't even think Howard was here when you were selected, and it was council who made the selections the first time. I guess we didn't really. We didn't recognize that it was the executive director and the initial group that was put together. The resumes came through council and we made the decisions. So I guess we did it wrong.
I think that what it means is that we have the opportunity to create a brand new process from scratch without having to bow to precedent or, any preconceived notions.
That is true.
Sharon, I do want to add that there are 2 questions and comments. Mike Ewall says, unless one of the 3 whose terms expire soon doesn't run again, there's only 1 new opening now, question. Or 2, since Stephanie doesn't fit the new category of having EJ or environmental justice experience. And also, do the county staff members have voting positions? And so the answer is yes, the county staff that are on the commission do have voting positions. And I said that in the response to him, but he mentioned the government officials should not have voting positions. There's a big imbalance of power to have nearly half of the votes coming from those who answer to the same bosses or boss. I just want to put those questions out there. I don't know about the question regarding how many members are going to be up or how many positions are up. And Stephanie, I don't know if you want to respond about the environmental justice.
Yeah, I do want to say, I meant to say, like, I have environmental justice experience in my career. I don't have it from a personal, like, living, in an environmental justice area is what I meant. But we're in environmental justice communities, yes.
In terms of how many positions are opening, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Francie, but she has represented that topic well, though, throughout this commission meetings.
And that should be totally noted here. So I just want to ask the question of how many positions, so the terms that are expiring, how many positions will actually be up? Do we know? I guess we have to determine.
I guess one of the questions, we sort of talked about this. Are they going to have to submit their resumes again? If the answer is yes, then all 4 positions are open. If you have to requalify for your position, there's no automatic assumption that you will be reappointed at the end of your term. So I think that's one thing. But I also wanted to comment on the question of whether the county employees should have a vote. And it's a good point in that they all work for the same boss. On the other hand, looking at practical realities, unless we have county employees on board for whatever it is we do, nothing's going to happen. We will never be successful. And so it's essential that we be able to convince the county employees that what we're doing is the right thing for the county and for everyone.
And Gamal Sharif mentions, I recommend that a letter of intent be requested with attention to how the commission member could support the triple bottom line, people, planet, and/or prosperity, and a resume. And Jim McLaughlin says, could all of those county officials be shifted to ex officio advisors without voting privileges?
I have to say that's not the way council set it up. So I think they wanted we did shift things a little bit with the proposed amendments. Instead of having it 8 government officials and 9 public, it's now going to be 7 government officials and 10 public. So we have shifted things a little bit with the vote we took today.
That suggestion, excuse me, Sharon, would that eliminate us as board members, as commission members, I should say, as
technically?
And that's, Elaine, correct me if I'm wrong. The council didn't design this commission as for us to be advisors, right? Or
No, I think it was a purposeful to have everyone have a vote.
Sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I don't think that. I know that.
Yeah, there's one quick question, Mike Ewald was talking if the Sustainability Commission is setting and making recommendations on their own reappointments. It's not the same as all reapplying. I think we would do the same thing in this particular thing where you all abstained from the vote to extend the terms. I think it would be that we would have a vote without with those abstained so that you're not voting on it. That would technically take care of that issue. I think in like Becca, Sean, and Stephanie would not be in the committee that's vetting the applications because they are one of the applicants if they choose to be. I think that would take care of that. I don't know what you all think.
I don't think that Howard has any responsibility to appoint based on our recommendations, and or nor should he. He is responsible to county council, and we're an advisory group to the county council. We don't have our own power here. So I think it's important that the Howard be given the latitude to appoint who he thinks should be on the commission based on what county council problems are being faced in that particular year.
You know,
Then
that may be why, I'm sorry, Carol, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that we can give it like a recommendation, but then Howard can do whatever he wants to do.
So that's what I was wondering. So in the original bylaws that you all voted in December, there is no process for vetting members. And this was brought up a meeting or two ago when we first started talking about that, saying there should be. So then the question is, we could leave the vetting of the membership to maybe the sustainability office. And because we're not or at least I'm not a member of the commission, Francine will be. And then recommendations are made to Howard and go for and keep the member part of it completely separate. Or do we put a process into the bylaws for vetting and making recommendations to the executive director, and then he can do whatever he wants to with them from there?
I just want to say that the people that we do have on this commission, they have such vast, great experience that it's my opinion, it might be nice to have their thoughts incorporated into the recommendation just because they have a lot of experience that may be helpful.
Ed, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I think the county council has a process, and the process is using the county clerk's office and the website to have people look at the openings that are available and the public can apply. And then we're going to get a list of resumes that way, rather than us self-proclaiming who we want to be on it.
I think one of the I talked to Ann, our county clerk, about this, and one of the quirky things about this commission is that it gives the appointment power to the executive director, not to the council. They did it last year because it was the first thing, first creation of the commission, and I think Howard had been on for maybe like 2 or 3 weeks into his job, so that's why the council did it last time. But the way the resolution was originally written was that it's the executive director that puts it together, which means it's just a little bit different than the normal process. And that surprised Ann also. So we have some flexibility as to what, and so maybe in the interest of time, because I know we're gonna get short on time. We have so much more to talk about. I'll take all of these suggestions and go talk to our executive director and see what he thinks, since he's eventually responsible for it. And if he would like the commission to actually have a committee that helps vet this for him, then and put forth some recommendations, and I can come back to you all and tell you that, and we can decide what to put in the bylaws. And maybe we also could talk with commission about metrics and how do we vet the folks and make sure that they're vetted properly. But let me take all of these suggestions, because they're all really good ones, and talk to him, and then come back to the commission and let you guys know what he would prefer, and we'll go from there. How does that sound?
Sharon, do you know I think we did put in there like a term limit or like a year limit. Like
it's a 3-year term, but they staggered it for the first 3 years.
No, I know. I think we put in like you can do up to 6 years on the commission or something like that. Like we did put in like you are like length limited.
I don't remember. I haven't looked at the bylaws in at least a week, and I'd have to look that up to double check. But I know even from the resolution amendment, we're going to have to make some adjustments to the bylaws. So let me go get some answers. And that's one of the things that we can review, that you can only be on the commission for a certain amount of time, and go from there. Any other thoughts or questions? And I'd like to welcome anybody else. They can always email sustaindelco at our email and add to this conversation, so that I'm prepared to talk to our executive director.
But Sharon, it does sound like kind of pending, however, this process works itself out, anyone with an term that's ending would need to reapply along with anyone from the public that is interested in applying.
Yes, that's my impression of reading the bylaws.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Mine too, thank you.
Yep. Any other thoughts? Okay. Thank you. That was a very good conversation and very helpful. I appreciate it. So I'm going to turn it over to Francine, and she's going to talk about a clean air hearing that's coming up.
Yes, thank you very much. So the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection is going to have a public hearing that is an opportunity for the public to share their comments on Covanta's renewal of their air permit, their Title V air permit. There is a link here for those who would like to register for this. You can't do it here, but when we post the slides, we'll be able to allow folks to click on that link and register directly on the DEP's website for this hearing. The deadline for comments is actually after the hearing date. The hearing date is September 22nd at 6:30 p.m. But comments are able to be shared up to October 4th, which is interesting. So in case you're not familiar, Covanta is an incinerator in Chester City, and there is a lot of public interest in the renewal of their air permit. Any questions, comments, interest in that? I know there is. So the next part of this is that as a commission, I'm wondering if we would like to submit our own statement to DEP on this Title V application for Covanta. And some language is here that we may want to include. We've shared it with the commission prior to this meeting, so there has been a chance to take a look at it. But the county is drafting a separate statement. So council will have a separate statement that they are submitting to the DEP in regards to this permit application or re-application. But this is basically saying that we would be calling upon the DEP to write the following requirements into the Title V operating permit for Covanta. And those three items are: Covanta must install equipment capable of reducing nitrogen oxide or NOx emissions to the modern limit of 45 parts per million, as met by the new incinerator they operate in West Palm Beach, Florida. Number two, Covanta must install an activated carbon injection system to reduce emissions of dioxins and mercury and achieve a standard of 15 parts per million, as the trash incinerator in Baltimore, Maryland, will soon be required to meet. And number three, Covanta must use continuous emissions monitoring technology to measure compliance with standards for particulate matter, dioxins and furans, and toxic heavy metals, including arsenic, cadmium, chromium, lead, mercury, and nickel, and must report this data on a public website within 2 hours of data collection. So we're asking for the commission here to look at this and decide if we would like to submit a statement to the DEP for this permit application process hearing.
Yeah, and just like what we did before, we would need someone to make a motion and then we'd have to vote.
I'd also like to add the commission deciding whether or not you want to submit a statement as a commission is separate from you all taking this language or making other statements and turning them into the DEP on your own as individuals. So what's up for consideration? Because every single commission member could technically take this, write it in a letter and email it and submit it to the DEP on your own. So this is a decision as to whether or not the commission, as the Sustainability Commission, wants to submit a statement to the DEP.
Is there any discussion about that, or what do people think?
Yeah, Sharon, can you?
I say we do.
Sharon, can you confirm that our bylaws allow us to make motions that when we're advisory committee to council? To make
it doesn't say we can't. So.
And this is for the Sustainability Commission to submit the statement on behalf of the Sustainability Commission. County Council is doing their own independently. I don't know if that makes a difference, Ed.
Well, it's just the idea that I don't know that the resolution gives us the power to act on as a commission independently. I don't know.
Well, if you can find anything that states otherwise, please let us know. Otherwise, we're going to move forward. If someone could make a motion for this, it'd be great.
Yeah, I would make the motion, and I believe just in my capacity with dealing with other commissions that yes, at any point in time you can, because you are advisory, but you're standing on your own in making comments and suggestions. Obviously, it's not a resolution or anything like that. So it would just be a letter. It's no different than like a coalition working together.
So I guess the motion is that we would like to submit a formal statement to the DEP, essentially. So I'm just trying to paraphrase it for Jacqueline. So would someone like to second that motion?
I'll second.
Okay.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
No, I'd like to abstain only because this is not my area of expertise.
Okay, so it sounds like no one is opposing, but Ed, you're abstaining.
Correct.
Okay. All right, then it still looks like it's passed, so.
Okay.
So thank you.
I can double check our resolution that there's nothing in there that prohibits us from doing this. I'll just double check. I don't remember anything that actually would prohibit us from doing it, but I'll make sure before we submit the statement. I'll let you all know if that happens. So that's a good point. Okay, Francine.
Yes, so we are going to hold at Council's public meeting room a solid waste management public hearing on September 30th at 6 p.m. The purpose of this meeting is for Council to listen to subject matter experts as well as the public. And primarily that is the reason for this hearing, is to listen to the public and their concerns for waste management in the county. The meeting will be live streamed, but it is in person. We can have email questions or statements, public comment sent in, but the agenda here is draft. We'd like to have a council welcome. The Sustainability Commission, we'd like to reach out to you guys right now and ask for a volunteer to speak at the opening for 5 minutes. And also, folks, if you want to come in to assist with logistics in the council room, it would be really helpful for anybody from the commission. We're going to have a 10-minute presentation from the Solid Waste Authority describing the solid waste management system that is presently in place in the county, from municipality to transfer station to final destination. We would like to have a member of the DEP present, a member of Covanta, and this should be the Energy Justice Network. My apologies, it says environmental. And public comment will be an hour and a half. We're asking for 3 to 5 minutes for each member of the public to share their comments. And once again, this is really for council and information and the public to receive information about what is the current status of solid waste management in the county and what our ideas are moving forward. Councilmember Schaefer, I'm not sure if you'd like to say anything. No, cool, thank you.
Nothing to add.
Thank you. But I would like to ask folks here if you would consider, and we don't have to have an answer today, but anybody who would like to participate in making that 5-minute statement about what the Sustainability Commission is doing in terms of plans for zero waste, plans for sustainability work in the county, and also helping with logistics, because I think we're going to have a very large group.
Francine, when is the meeting?
The 30th of September.
Okay.
And it's in the evening at 6 o'clock at the government center.
Okay.
Yeah, so talking about the logistics side, if you don't want to be the one actually speaking from the Sustainability Commission, I think we need some help with some online stuff, making sure that our AV tech, Sean, who always helps us with our meetings, has what he needs. And then we are going to have an overflow room in our jury prep room, which is around a very long corridor in corner from the council meeting room, so that if we need to take folks in between the two rooms to get them ready for a public comment or something like that, they have a little bit of an escort. So it's really just some physical logistics, maybe helping with timers, just helping making sure people in the room have kind of what they need, and we're managing the logistics well. So that would be very helpful to have a couple of folks helping with that.
Karen, I can help with that.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it.
I'd like to help too, however you need my help.
Okay, Carol, thank you.
That's great.
Yeah, and I'd like to help, but I need to check a schedule and just make sure I can. So sure, maybe I can just email you directly.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, and if anybody else wants to check calendars, if you want to, this is just under 2 weeks away. It's on a Thursday night. So if you want to just check a calendar and email me, and then I'll get a group of emails together as we finish fixing out the logistics. We're still working on some of it to figure out what everybody's role is. That would be great. And then I'll just email you directly.
Just want to mention, it will be interesting if anybody does come, because it'll be the first time I've ever met you in person, most of you. I don't think anybody.
True. So true. Does anyone have any questions about the event? Okay, then we will move on to the next section. Okay, so we have been vetting over a couple of meetings and a lot of Google Docs our high-level goals for our sustainability plan. And this is really just to allow me to have some kind of concrete ideas of what the commission wants to put in our plan, so that I can work on assessments and some first level of outreach. And to save us some time, because we actually have a couple more things to talk about at the end, I'm not going to go over these slides in great detail. I wanted to make sure they were in the slide deck so that they would be posted online and you all could read them. But I don't think I'm going to go over them in great detail, because I've done that over a couple of meetings. The only difference, the sustainability plan vision is still the same. Nothing has changed on that. We're still looking to create SMART goals with baselines, targets, and actions. And I will say that the 3 FERB goal that we decided to focus around the triple bottom line, the top 3 verbs were engage, conserve, and prosper. I think those ended up with the most votes from everybody. And what I'll also say for everything on the next 5 or 6 slides, this is all still considered a draft. That every bit of this wording, every bit of these goals is going to get refined over time. We just needed something workable so that we could start doing some outreach and talking with the public and kind of digging into the metrics of what the county is doing. And so while the 3 verbs we've kind of settled on, that doesn't mean these can't change 6 months from now if we get through this process and decide that we want to have different verbs. So I'll just go ahead and say that. We still are focused on these topic areas with some overarching themes. I started putting in some definitions of what maybe equity, inclusion, economic growth, some education and government themes might do, but this has to do more with our ability to start talking about it and doing outreach, but this can change. And I would love to talk about the Equity and Inclusion Committee that we talked about last month. So we have our draft health and wellness goals. There were a couple in the last round of editing. There were just some words here and there that I did adjust in here. But like I said, these stay as drafts until we write up that final sustainability plan at the end of our outreach and assign metrics and actions. So this will just stay as draft. It's just something to work with. So we have our draft natural resource goals. We've got our draft transportation goals, got our draft energy goals, and I know I'm going through this quickly, but you all will get a copy of these afterwards. And then our draft waste and resource management goals. One thing I wanted to put on the diversion line, which is the second from the bottom, is we seriously need to revisit this particular, we didn't refine this one completely, talking about diversion. In almost every other area of the country, waste diversion and zero waste is all predicated on diverting away from a landfill. But in Delaware County, incineration is such a huge issue that we may end up making decisions as a group or as a county that diversion away from an incineration is more important than diversion away from a landfill. We just have to have those discussions. And so I left this particular line very vague and saying that we need to revisit this with the solid waste management consultant that we work with, wait until after we have our outreach discussions and have more public meetings and get some more input into that. So I'm going to leave that.
Sharon, I just want to say that I don't agree with that, but you know, I just want to go on the record. If I don't see taking a step from incineration landfill as a good thing. And if we don't set the bar high going to the public with this, I think is a no-go. But, you know, we can talk about that afterwards, or I just don't want to approve something that kind of states what you said. I'd prefer being a little bit stronger.
Okay. I'm not a member of the commission, but I have to agree.
I got you. Mike actually put in a definition from an international zero waste emission. I just wanted to say that we haven't decided what our diversion goal is. And I think we need to wait until we do a lot more outreach and work with our solid waste management consultant before we are more firm on this particular goal. That's just my opinion though.
Yep. I would just say though that if we set the bar high and we get public response and the public is, no, don't go to zero waste. I mean, obviously we take that into consideration,
right.
But also we understand that we have to look at what is possible. The goal ultimately is zero waste, knowing that there will be steps in between. So again,
that's a good
just
point.
clarify.
Yeah, very good point. Okay, then we have our draft climate resiliency goals, and this particular group of goals is a little bit of a catch-all, but I think it still ends up working, and we'll refine these as we do our outreach. So next steps is that we are going to perform those assessments. I'm actually starting to work on them now, and we will have some assistance from our LCAP students there was a question earlier in the question and answer talking about our local climate action plan and the greenhouse gas emission inventory and net zero climate emission goals. All of that is a subset of our overarching sustainability plan. So we're the climate action plan as a subset may not get published separately. It may be part of the bigger overarching plan. It's something we have to work out over time as we're working through the LCAP program, and then we'll go from there. So I would love to, in just a couple of slides, we're going to talk a little bit more about committees now that we've kind of settled down on some high-level goals and what are some of the next steps. So we'll talk about equity and inclusion statements, doing some initial outreach, and then based on the assessments and some of the initial outreach, then we'll start adding targets and metrics and gathering information about what type of actions, and then we may end up doing another round of outreach after that. So we'll definitely have several rounds of outreach to the public at different parts along this plan, but we'll at least start working on the initial one actually in the next couple of weeks. So as part of the assessments, we're going to be cross-referencing the goals with the Delco 2035 plans. I have some time set up with our planning department to kind of go into that in depth and help me learn more about what they do, and then decide what are some of the metrics that they already measure on a county level versus what we do in operations. So for example, they have this beautiful goal about building out this beautiful bike trail network in the county. And like one of the questions that I would have for them is how many miles are built now? You know, do we have 4 miles built and we want to build 30? Then there's some of the numbers that we can play with our goals. I'm going to be reviewing some of the documents the Sustainability Plan Committee has been working on, because there's some really great metrics that I just need to tie to our current goals. So I'm going to be working on that. And then I'm starting to schedule a meeting with our internal departments, which several of them are on the line today. So to discuss goals and existing metrics, and then what are some of the possibilities of maybe new metrics that we can add or things that we can measure on the county operation side of things. So we are going to be working, we just started with the LCAP program on our greenhouse gas emission inventory. The inventory part of that should be done by December. So we will actually be able to come to the commission and give you some information about our inventory. And then we've been, Francine has started having some additional strategy meetings with the directors that are in her sustainability division. So we're going to probably continue those and work through some of the issues. So this is the draft outreach plan that I am kind of working with. What I would love to do is probably work with the Sustainability Plan Committee to dig into this a little bit more and see if there's certain things that maybe the commission could help with, or they have some ideas of how to refine this. But this is a high level draft outreach plan that I want to dig into more with one of the subcommittees. So I broke it into the control, influence, educate kind of buckets that we've been talking about. So internally, this is where we can control things a little bit better. I'm going to be meeting with the 6 operational departments and some other select groups and select departments within the county. With several of those groups and possibly some open meetings that any employee can attend, we'll probably do some focus groups just to try and gather some employee input. For one, from the operational departments, we'll actually probably schedule those with those groups, but then also hold some open meetings so that any county employee can actually attend and give some input on some thoughts about what they think about county operations. And then in those meetings at different levels, we'll be brainstorming different actions for county operations and possible community programs. And then talking to those folks about what do you think the priorities should be. And then once we do that, I'll be able to bring some great information back to the commission. So then in the middle section for municipalities, I was initially thinking about doing like a paper survey or like a Survey Monkey, where we were, and you all have, a lot of you have helped me vet, at least do a first round of vetting on some of those surveys. But I think I may end up taking that survey and have my LCAP students actually talk to the municipalities and do it as more of an interview instead of a survey. That's what I'm kind of thinking on at the moment. And then I can schedule some follow-up meetings with the municipalities to be able to dig into certain pieces of it, talking about metrics and that kind of thing. But they could do the initial survey, help me with that. And then
Hey, Sharon, this is Steve. I have a question.
Yeah.
Is the intention to hit all, what is there, 60 some odd municipalities?
49.
What is your intention when you say municipalities?
It's all 49.
Everyone. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome.
I'm going to be ambitious. I think all 49 should at least have an opportunity to weigh in, and we need to learn what they're doing, you know, at a more detailed assessment level. Otherwise, we can't include it into the plan. So, yeah, it's a little ambitious.
Awesome.
But we'll try.
I would still argue for doing the survey and the interviews, because I think there's still like good aggregate data that can come from those that we can then cite in other things.
Okay. I think maybe if we work on that as a committee, because we were a little uncertain about the municipal survey about how to really structure it to get a good answer. So I think maybe we'll talk about that as a committee.
What about Sharon, the EACs? Is there an intention to hit them? And
that's in the public. That's in the public one. Mm-hmm. That's in the next column.
Gotcha.
Yep. I think one of the other, especially for the municipalities that are seriously interested in what we're doing as a sustainability commission, I could even offer to host focus groups for them with their employees to be able to do the same kind of thing I do with the county employees, talking about their operations and community programs and that kind of thing. So we'll just have to kind of see how that fleshes out with timelines and schedules, but that might be a really neat offering for the municipalities that are interested. So then,
Sharon,
yeah, go ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
Municipal rep, I would also recommend, rather than trying to, I guess, hit all 49 first, I would recommend going to the consortium of governments as a first step, because those are the more, I'll say, involved municipalities to begin with, and it is far-reaching. As a previous county planner, I will say there are definitely some municipalities that are more difficult than others to gain feedback from. So I think starting at that higher level would be a really good start, rather than having to try to hit all 49 as your first, I guess, point of contact with municipalities.
Okay, that's a great idea. Thank you. So then on the public.
Sorry, Sharon.
Go ahead.
Mr. McLaughlin said, applause for the control, influence, educate structure of this. This is also a living doc, so it can be built over time. Thank you.
Thank you. So for the public part of it, we want to send out a general survey, which I think we're almost done vetting the final version. I think our committee might need to help us with the final, where we would send this out by social media, through the EACs, through NGOs, like through any avenue or channel that I can get that survey out to residents and people who work in the county. I'd love to get all of their attitudes, but it does survey general attitudes. And I know a lot of the folks on the line have helped us vet that survey. And I think as maybe an action at the end of the survey is to check out our social media channels and follow the sustainability office on the social media channels. Then I'm going to approach the environmental action committees and ask maybe to attend their next meeting, talking about, brainstorming ideas and goals and some of the things that I'll be doing with the other groups as maybe a first round of outreach to the EACs. I think they're going to be integral to what we do over the next year. And I'll probably go back to them multiple times. Then we have doing some advocacy out to our NGOs that cover things in the county and advocacy groups, and scheduling some meetings with them, whether it's online or in person. I think it's going to depend on the nonprofit or whatever group it is, and kind of doing some more outreach. What do you think about these goals? I think it depends on the audience as to how I would facilitate the particular meeting to get their feedback. So we've got a lot of options that I'll probably talk about with the committee. And then I want to have some bigger open meetings that anybody could participate in. And they would not necessarily be public hearing style, like what we're doing with the council, but just some open, little bit of brainstorming, maybe some sticky notes and some stickers, and maybe doing some facilitated discussions around the sustainability plan and the goals, just to get some generalized meeting. And we'll probably have several of those that we'll have in different parts of the county at different times of the day, and try and make it accessible to different people. But what I'll probably also do is work with the EACs and the NGOs to be able to target certain populations and certain groups to make sure that we're covering and we have as many of these meetings as we need to. Now, this particular structure, like I said, I did want to talk about it with the committees, and especially if we start working on the equity inclusion, I want to make sure that our outreach plan is as equitable as possible, and that we're hitting the right places and having the meetings when we need to. But does anybody have any overarching thoughts or comments about the plan?
Do we have any multilingual support so we can do some of this in languages other than English?
Ooh, I am not sure. I know I am not multilingual, unfortunately.
Or am I, unfortunately?
We could look and see what kind of resources we have with the county to be able to possibly do that. But that honestly would be really awesome if we could figure that out. But I'll definitely put that down as an idea. Thanks, Jenny. Any other thoughts or comments? Okay. So that is the end of that section.
Sharon,
Francine?
I just want to go back to, there were two comments on the chat in reference to a prior slide. Mike Ewell just wanted to mention that zero waste is defined internationally as 100% diversion from incineration and at least 90% diversion from landfill. And also he provided a link to the actual definition of and the zero waste hierarchy are at this particular website that we can share somehow, I guess, in the meeting, meeting minutes.
We can put that in the meeting minutes, definitely. Francine, could you check the email real quick just to see if we've had anything come in on email?
So far, no.
Okay. So now that we've had this bigger conversation around the high level goals that we've been talking about for a couple of months and kind of a draft outreach plan, I wanted to revisit the conversation around committees. We ran out of time in August to really talk about committees. So our Greening Operations Committee went ahead and closed down, and we have the countywide sustainability plan still there. We had talked about doing the zero waste, but hadn't started it yet. And then we had talked about equity and inclusion committee to be able to do a higher level statement around equity inclusion and make sure we're handling things properly. So I just want to kind of leave this open for discussion. For Carol, maybe if you and Jacqueline want to talk about our committees.
Well, I know like at some of our previous previous council meetings, or commission meetings rather, people did voice their interest in being on those committees. So is the question whether or not we're going to start meeting, and maybe even ask now if other people are interested who haven't voiced their interest before. And I guess in general, is there interest to keep these, to have the zero waste and equity inclusion, and of course the countywide sustainability plan, and continue that one? Is that, I guess that may be the first question.
And I think we didn't really have any committee meetings over the summer while we were doing kind of the joint Google Docs and kind of vetting certain things. So it could be the opportunity that if somebody was on the sustainability plan one and wants to switch. But I also think it's important to talk about, there is nothing in our bylaws that say the committees only have to be members. So if you wanted to have a smaller amount of committee members for the committees, but then recruit from the public or for a subject matter expert or these other people, it's the opportunity for other people to be engaged without being an official member. But that would be handled by the individual committee as to who they would want to ask to be in the committee with them. So I just wanted to put that out there.
So if we are allowing like members of the public to be a part of these, would then we like advertise it as such? Whoever's interested, contact maybe the chair of each of the committees, like if one of us,
or we could have them say, if you're interested in a particular committee and want to help, because there's so much work to do. I think I don't want to overwhelm the members, that they could email Sustain Delco and we can manage the requests coming in and give them to the chair of each committee. We could do that.
So how does everyone feel about that? Having members of the public also be involved in these committees? It would obviously be led by one of us, but
yeah. And you're welcome to put an answer in the chat. You don't have to unmute if you don't want to.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I support the idea of inviting members of the public who have particular expertise and don't have perhaps the time to devote officially to being a member of a commission, but can help out with a couple hours from time to time and have real expertise. I'm reminded of a friend who I will be introducing to Francine shortly, who works for the federal government doing energy efficiency projects on federally owned buildings. And he's, is absolutely an expert on the subject, but he's real busy. So but we can pick his brain anytime. And also another nonprofit that I'm aware of, we have an investment committee. The investment committee, they're not board members, they're members of the public who have some knowledge and expertise to contribute to the management of the organization's endowment funds. And these are the kind of things you can bring in people from anywhere as long as you have oversight.
I just want to add that in my experience with the school district of Philadelphia and developing the sustainability plan there, we had 5 committees, and having members of nonprofits, the community, and people who are experts in field was extraordinarily helpful to help guide the task of the committee. It also allowed for multiple resources to be infused into the committee to allow for initiatives that were not paid for or spearheaded by the county, but that were done so by that group. And were then included in the sustainability plan as accomplishments by the whole group. So I found that to be very helpful. It's not just discussing the issues, but it's also having initiatives built out of them and resources. I want to add something. We have a public comment from Mike Ewald, and he just said, could equity and inclusion graduate to using the preferred term of justice? Equity could mean everyone gets polluted to the same amount, which is not what environmental justice is about. Given the issues in the county, perhaps combining justice with industrial pollution matters to address the riverfront communities. Just wanted to add that as a thought for that subcommittee or that committee of equity and inclusion.
And just another thought I want to piggyback on his comment is that we could say justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. I mean, JEDI is a popular term within that circle, so it could encompass all of those. And justice is about dismantling any of the structures that we have in place that cause the inequity. So maybe justice would in fact really be a good addition to that. And McGargy has a comment. I would prefer that the subcommittee search out the expertise that they need rather than the public wanting to participate.
Yeah, I mean, I found that it's very helpful for the subcommittee as a group to say, let's go reach out to, let's say, the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society or DVRPC, or finding the resources that are out there, or a community group, and asking them to participate. It's much, if we can do that.
Yeah, maybe we leave it up to each committee as to, depending on what they're working on, that if we have some interest from the public, but that to understand and make sure that the public members understand that these are working committees, and that if they do decide to be part of the committee, other than just a subject matter expert that's brought in for like 1 hour to talk about something or something like that, but if they're part of the committee, that they're expected to do some work. These are working committees.
Yes.
And if they just have maybe public statements or opinions or things, it's more for the commission level setting, not for the working committees, and that we can make that apparent, that they are working committees.
So would you like us to, Sharon and Francine, to, ask those of us who'd like, again, to be on each of those, and we record their names now, and then we go to them like after today's meeting to put a step forward? Or
yeah, what would be really helpful is if we put if everybody in the chat box could maybe write down which one they want to be in, or if they want to be in 2, because then I have a written record and I don't have to try and vet 17 members and what they said on a recording, which is really difficult on these recordings. So if you could just put in your chat box which ones you're interested in, and then we'll go from there. Yeah, and that's so helpful because then I have it written down. So we'll give it a moment. For everybody to do that. And for the public that is attending the meeting, if you'd like to put something in the chat or in the Q&A, so I have a recording of it, just make sure, I think I have everybody's email when you registered. But yeah, put your name and email and what you might be interested in if you're interested, and I will reach out to you later. Okay.
So it sounds like, you'll go through all the comments in the chat and then we'll go from there, it sounds like.
I think so. So the Sustainability Plan Committee was done. We did a vote on zero waste like a couple of months ago. And with the RFP out to get the solid waste consultant, maybe we can have some level setting meetings in October and then plan on, once the consultant comes in November, kind of going from there. I think we might have to have the formal vote to create equity inclusion. We talked about it, but we ran out of time.
Oh, so we
I think
officially,
just to be official.
okay. And do we actually want to just vote on that committee, but not necessarily the name? Like, remember we were talking about maybe changing the name. So maybe we
Correct.
we'll just vote to have a committee for equity inclusion, but whether or not it's added, we add justice to it or whatever, that'll be a separate.
Correct.
Okay, all right. So would someone like to make a motion that we create a committee for equity and inclusion?
I can make that motion.
Okay, thanks, Stephanie.
Make the motion to create the equity inclusion or a similar name decided on later.
Okay, thank you. Would someone like to second that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any
I'm
abstain?
sorry, Carol,
Oh.
can you repeat the motion?
Yeah, Stephanie made the motion and it was to create an equity and inclusion committee or something similarly named. So that was the motion.
Okay,
So-
sorry, I got cut off and I had to log back in, so that's why.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. And we have a second and we did all in favor, and I'm saying, is anyone opposed? And is any abstentions? Okay, so moved. We have an equity and inclusion committee.
Thank you very much, Carol. Okay. So our next meeting is October 21st at 6 p.m. No changes to that, but I know I have a few follow-up things from this particular meeting that I'll have to send you in between. So be on the lookout for more emails. I know you guys are getting tired of emails from me yet. Maybe not yet. So other business announcements. I have one other business, and then we can, there was also one item that was talked about in the Q&A that I want to bring up. So our facility condition needs assessments. We are actually working on the final drafts now. We are actually working on the PowerPoint now, and the architects would love to present the results to the Sustainability Commission as to get your input for one, but also as a dry run for the council and to get your feedback on how to improve the presentation and such, and make sure that we're covering things that we need to cover. And so if we wait until October 21st, that actually might be a little bit too late in this particular line. I think we want to be presenting to council around that time. So I was curious whether or not the commission would consider having kind of a mid-month meeting, something in between our normally monthly meetings, maybe the week of October 4th, where this is not a topic they can cover in 20 minutes on a regular commission meeting. It is going to be probably at least an hour and a half of solid content and then have a discussion for another 30, 45 minutes. So it's probably an hour and a half, 2-hour meeting with a lot of content and discussion. And so I was wondering if the commission would consider planning something about 2 weeks from now, 2 to 3 weeks from now, something in between our meetings.
Would this be a public meeting, Sharon?
We would Zoom it. We would set up a Zoom meeting and we would project it just like we do this one. So yes, it would be a public meeting.
I think all our meetings had to be public. I would certainly support the idea. I would suggest that it be an afternoon meeting, not an evening meeting. On the grounds that evening meetings are set up primarily to be able to involve the public. And this is something that is mostly beyond the scope of the public, although, people are welcome to tune in, but, it's not as though we're trying to get as many people as possible to participate.
Yeah, we would not necessarily have to have a quorum because we wouldn't be voting on anything. This is presentation of information and getting feedback. So if we couldn't get a quorum, it would still be okay, technically.
I would recommend the opposite evening. I mean, this is my day job cutting into now. Either one's fine.
So it sounds like there's support for the meeting, but we need to figure out whether or not it's day or evening. Does everybody want to maybe in the chat box say which they prefer? And then I can start, and if there's a particular day that you prefer the week of October 4th, and then maybe I can just put it all together and reach back out to you all.
Could you maybe set up a poll, maybe get the contractor's schedule and let us know when they could do it, and then
yes,
get that out to us?
That's a great idea. Yeah.
Otherwise,
that'll work.
we'll have to go through all of our comments and calendars, and
yeah,
you don't.
Maybe I'll do like a when to meet, kind of when people are. Yeah, I'll do something like that and send it out to the group, and then we'll decide on a day and time, and then make it public. So, okay.
Can you tell me again how long you said this meeting would be?
I'm going to say at least an hour and a half. We might end up sending it for 2 hours, but we might finish early. We'll see. We could shoot for an hour and a half. I know we'll go longer than an hour. I'm pretty sure about that. So, okay. Then we're in support of the meeting. I'll check with the architects. We'll do a when to meet, and then we'll publicize when, and if you can make it, awesome. If not, it'll be recorded and you can look at it after, and we'll just do it that way instead of requiring a quorum.
And is there any other new business?
There was one, Francine, and I don't know if we can answer this question or not. Both Jim and Mike talked about on September 27th, which is 3 days before our solid waste public hearing, the executive director is going to be holding a public meeting on the ARPA funds, the American Rescue Plan funds, and getting some feedback from the public on how that funding should be spent. I honestly have no more details other than that. I don't think it's quite been all planned out. But one of the questions, is anyone from the commission interested in attending that? Or where I can make sure you have that information, that if you're interested, it's also going to be probably live streamed.
Yeah, and I'm sure it'll be posted on the Delaware County website too soon.
I've been interested. This is Jacqueline. I'd be interested.
Okay. One of the questions that was in the Q&A was talking about whether or not the Sustainability Commission, I think, was going to have some input as to how those funds will be spent. I know it's not going to happen at the hearing, just because the hearing is just supposed to be an open forum for anybody in the public. But considering that we are looking at facility condition assessments and some other things, there may be an opportunity for the commission to give some advice. I just don't know how structured that advice would be yet. That's my opinion, but if I just don't know enough about that process yet to comment in great detail. So
Also, there was a date that I was going to give regarding the solid waste management plan consultant RFP proposal due date. That's October 4th, when those proposals are due to the county.
does anyone have any other business or announcements?
I just want to address the meeting for the ARPA meeting. It's really an opportunity for public comment on how how we should look at spending this money. And we have 3 years to spend this money, so this is not we're not making decisions right now and divvying it all up. It's we want to be thoughtful, but we want to be we want to hear from people, what their thoughts are and incorporate it into our thinking. And to the extent that there are needs that are the here and now, we have spent some of it already on here and now needs. One program we funded was giving our small businesses money so that they could give bonuses for hiring people, because everyone's having so much trouble staffing, and the Wawas of the world were giving out $1,000 bonuses, so nobody in a small business could staff. So we gave our small businesses money to bring new people in. Like, that's a here and now spending. We can't wait a year. It won't be useful in a year. So there is some here and now spending happening, and there probably are here and now needs that we don't know about. And that's sort of what this is about. But it's also about, like, over the next 3 years, how this money should best be spent. I mean, I personally am in the this money is for public health, but also to restart our economy. And in 3 years, like, the restarting either happened or it didn't. So, like, in my view, it's better spent now when we need it. But so that's the type of discussion, that we'd like to hear from people.
Thank you for that additional context. That's very helpful. Any other thoughts or questions about anything we covered today? There's a lot of follow-up that I'll be doing next week on different topics. So thank you for the good discussion today. I really appreciate that.
I did have something because I lost connection and logged back in regarding committees. So I know last time I missed, the idea was to hold off on convening the Zero Waste Committee until we have the consultant. I don't know if there's any discussion about that today, but I thought originally when we had passed the motion to create the committee, the idea was to start having conversations about how we can support municipalities. And so I just wanted to bring that up today because I thought it'd still be a good idea to start having those meetings.
Yeah, I think it's well, and we think we're going to have a consultant on board in November, which is not that far away. So if we wanted to go ahead and have, the chair of the committee wanted to go ahead and start calling the meetings, I think it's okay. I think going into the summer, it was just awkward. Not most everybody couldn't meet this summer. So maybe now is the better timing for it. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's fine because we actually don't even have a chair. I mean, there were people I said I would help organize, but obviously the committee has to decide the chair. So, like, obviously that's something that could be done and just more like the business order of the meeting as opposed to getting into content before the consultant is on board.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Thanks for that comment. Any other thoughts or questions?
And are there any other, like, public comment through, like, the email address or anything?
No, we haven't had anything through the email, and we've addressed everything that was in the Q&A and in the chat. So I think there's several things in the chat that we'll end up adding into the notes and the minutes from the meeting. So good.
So if there aren't any other, like, items of new business or anything, then we will adjourn the meeting. Okay. So would someone like to make a motion to adjourn today's meeting?
Make a motion.
Okay. Would someone like to second that?
Second.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? All right, so moved. Our meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.